Howdy, y'all. I'm Andy King.
And I'm Sean Chandler.
And this is the crossover episode of the century with King's Comics and
Sean from Sean Chandler Talks About.
And today, we're here to do a spoiler review about Captain Marvel. Now, Sean and I have some differing opinions on the movie if you've watched each of our reviews. But today, we're just going to kind of go over the plot elements, kind of like what we liked, what we didn't like, and then kind of our thoughts on the implications for Endgame as well as the MCU going forward. So,
I don't know what your opinion is because you just posted your review as we were sitting here, so I didn't have time to watch it.
Yeah, so I should. So yeah, this will be coming out pretty soon then. But
okay.
I mean, at the same time, yeah, overall, if you've seen the review, I liked it. And what is problematic about that is apparently I liked it more than a lot of people, I guess, in the world, on the internet.
Well, that's what makes it interesting, though, because obviously the internet has been pouncing.
Yeah,
But with those, whenever that happens, you just. It's always a mob. It's always some group of people on Reddit. They're like, let's jump up, like wherever those mobs come from.
Yeah.
But how big is that mob? You don't really know, and how many people that are kind of in the middle of the road kind of got a taste of it. The Cinema Score was released today.
Yeah.
So that's an actual official organization.
Really?
That I mean, they track people as they come out of the theater. They gave it an A.
Really?
So that's the one that has some filters in place has an A. The audience score from Rotten Tomatoes, it's like below 50%.
Yeah, I mean, it's approaching Fantastic Four numbers right there. It's
right, and so, and even on my review, I mean, it's people like, I loved it, I hated it, it's the worst. It's all over the place. So
yeah.
we can hash this out. And we can come up with the objective answer on this one.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's the problem is like I've admitted this over and over. I am not a movie reviewer. I'm just not a good reviewer because I'm a fanboy. Like I'm gonna always have like. You know, my toes are going to be in the water. I'm a Man of Steel apologist. You know, like, I like the Man of Steel.
You don't need to apologize for Man of Steel. That's people that don't like Man of Steel. I think that's more on them.
Yeah.
If their point is that they're a Superman purist.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's different. But if you're just, the people that are just like, it's just a terrible movie. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I mean, and I guess that's my point, right? Is with Captain Marvel, you know, I liked what they were going for. I liked what they did because this was a huge undertaking. Yes, the big argument is the first, you know, solo female hero in the MCU, which, you know, does put a lot of pressure on it. But at the same time, I feel like just regardless of, you know, social agendas, whatever people are complaining about, it was just a good movie. I mean, maybe it wasn't the best in the MCU, but I thought it was a good movie with all the period piece stuff going on, with this whole galactic war going on, because I know, you know, since Guardians of the Galaxy, we haven't even had something of that scale.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, not even with Thor Ragnarok. So that was fun.
Yeah, I was a little bit lower on it than you, but it's still MCU. They like their worst stuff is still very watchable. It's still fun. It's still enjoyable.
Right.
So that's where people all the time they look at my rankings. They're like, "You have this really low. Why do you hate it?" I don't.
Yeah.
Like the low bar for the MCU is a very high bar.
Yeah.
In the scheme of franchises of movies out there in the universe. When like people talk about awful movies, and they're like, "How is Thor Ragnarok?" Or excuse me, not Ragnarok. How is Thor: The Dark World and Iron Man 2 not on your 10 worst comic book movies of all time? It's like because you haven't seen these other movies,
right?
Like when you actually watch all the movies that are out there, Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World are nowhere close to the bottom at all. And so this one, once again, it's on the lower half of my Marvel movies, but it's still a very watchable film. Still a lot of fun. I was never bored or anything like that. We'll get into specifics, but there's a bunch of things I really liked about it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of clunkiness to it, too.
Oh, absolutely.
The phrase that I've heard some other people use and I thought worked really nicely is that it feels like it's repeating some mistakes that they made in Phase 1. That for the other franchises, it feels like they ironed them out, but it's like come back in this movie, it feels like a little bit.
And actually, that's another interesting point I had because you have these, you know, like a lot of the mistakes in Phase 1, as far as I could tell, were, I don't know, kind of technical mistakes and like writing mistakes because they were still like kind of just
figuring it out.
But in Phase 2 and 3, mainly Phase 3, it felt like a lot of the mistakes were like a lot of forced humor. You know? And there was definitely some of that in Captain Marvel, but I felt like a lot of the humor that was in it was better than like what we even saw in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. You know, like I felt Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was kind of the pinnacle of like the forced humor in the MCU.
Well, you didn't like jokes about Drax's nipples and then the Looney Tunes sequence where they were jumping through space.
Oh my god!
And David Hasselhoff making an appearance.
Well, and that was my problem too, right? Is the fact that like I feel like, oh gosh, I'm about to get flamed for this, but I feel like just because it's an MCU movie, that's kind of what I like about Captain Marvel getting so much flack, is I feel like just because it's an MCU movie, people instantly feel like they have to champion like everything about it, like forced comedy, terrible CGI, and Actually, I think this one had better CGI than Endgame. I mean, than Infinity War. What the CGI
overall?
Okay,
because you talking about the de-aging, flawless.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But when you had the people like flying in suits in spaces, like this is a little cartoony. And so it depends on which one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess my thing was that it was a lot stronger for the de-aging. Like, I don't know what Marvel's doing with de-aging, but they've just killed it.
Like from the trailers, it looks so good. I was like, does this mean Samuel L. Jackson's only in like 5 minutes of this movie? Because you can't. That's been the argument up to this point in time. Is like you can't de-age someone at that level for a full movie. Yeah, and then they just did.
Well, especially because it had this one thing like I've always thought, and I think either you kind of changed my perspective on this, or like we've just talked about it before. But Marvel movies capitalize on this whole kind of genre fusion. You know, it's like something that like I think The Dark Knight kind of started is like this idea that it doesn't just have to be a superhero movie. It can be a heist film. It can be a period piece. I mean, in this one, we got a period piece and like this buddy cop like comedy.
And also, it's like the X-Files. That's the way I was watching it. Like go to a secret base, FBI agent type person, pick someone up as an investigating. There's kind of banter. Yeah. It's super like the middle hour is very X-Files. And that's probably my favorite thing about it is that like Samuel L. Jackson starring in an episode of the X-Files. And there's even like a little cute, like even some of the if you watch enough X-Files, some of it's really creepy, but some of it's kind of cheesy in a funny way. And so then like Goose the Cat, Ben Mendelsohn, like all of that kind of reminded me of TV shows from the 90s. Even like reminded, especially with Ben Mendelsohn, reminded me of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So a bunch of 90s TV shows like came to mind as I was watching it.
And speaking of Ben Mendelsohn, for those of y'all who don't know, he's Australian, right? Australian actor or...
Mate.
Mate, yeah, he's a Aussie. Aussie. Oi. Either way, Ben Mendelsohn was the
we're from
lead
Texas,
scroll,
so that's what we just did. That's because we're from Texas.
Gig 'em.
But I'm not really sure. I'll look that up while you talk.
Thank you. But yeah, Ben Mendelsohn was the lead Skrull, who I think was named Talos. But I say that because like I've enjoyed Ben Mendelsohn and like everything I've seen in him. He can be like really creepy. He can be really endearing. He was I forget his name. Like he was in Rogue One as well. Australian. But he's a great actor. But
the new Robin Hood movie, Ready Player One.
Real? Oh, he wasn't.
And he's in The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So the guy's got incredible range, and now he's a Skrull.
Well, I guess that was my complaint against him is that sometimes he doesn't have range.
Really?
He kind of plays the same kind of schmarmy villain with the same personality.
I get that.
You see a lot of the same mannerisms. So when he first appeared in this one, I was like, oh, another Ben Mendelsohn doing his same shtick, except he's an alien now, and he's playing himself. Okay, and then this is spoilers, right?
Oh well, yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. The reason why I was bringing him up was to go into these spoilers because there was a huge twist in the movie.
This is spoilers, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So
spoilers.
Then, as soon as it twisted, it was like, oh, like he's playing against type. Like he's got some of his same mannerisms, but it's a very different type of role than you expect from the first half of the movie, which is the intentional twist. But just for his career, it's a different direction for him. He's like almost everyone saying he's one of the standouts of the movie, which I was not expecting from what even the first part was like more of the, come on, you gotta have more tricks in the bag than this same deal, and he did.
And I guess I wasn't expecting to have like as much of a. I don't want to say like emotional reaction, but as much of a, I was really impressed by this this twist that the Kree, were the bad guys. Because in the comics, the Kree are just a militaristic race who do create the Kree Empire, and anyone who doesn't join the Kree Empire is. So I mean, the fact that they like really played off of this, and that I was gonna say Joaquin Phoenix. Either way, Jude Law's portrayal of Jan Rog, because Jan Rog is the villain who leads to Carol Danvers becoming Miss Marvel, then Captain Marvel in the comics. So the fact that he was still the main villain was a huge, circular loop as well.
Right.
So I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of twists and turns in this one.
And that's some of the best things about it is that, like, the trailers didn't give away the plot at all.
No.
Like, if you know the comics, things like you said some things that kind of like hinted at some things in my mind is like, okay, I mean, I know there's going to be a twist. I'm pretty sure Jude Law is going to be the villain in this. I'm pretty sure that's where this is going. Okay, that guy that's one of Ronan's crew. Wait, the Kree weren't exactly good guys in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
So there's several things in there that could hint at it, even if you don't know the comics. And then from our previous conversations, knew some things. But they set up really nicely to have legitimate twists and turns. I wasn't expecting it. And then if you look back on it, you're like, oh yeah, the Skrull weren't like killing people. They weren't they weren't doing like horrible things.
They were defending themselves.
Defending themselves. Even like they're going through her memories trying to find information. They weren't torturing her.
Yeah.
And so like at first glance you could be like, what are they doing to her? And so that's kind of what the movie kind of, maybe one of the things the first 30 minutes does most efficiently is that it kind of brainwashes you the way Carol Danvers has been brainwashed.
Yeah.
So as you're watching it, in the trailers too, teach you about this universe from the same perspective that she has been taught about this universe, which is that they're the bad guys, interpret their everything through this narrative. And so everything you would see and interpret through, okay, they just kidnapped her in order that they can mess with her mind. They've probably done something. That's why her brain is messed up. And then you go, no. The only reason we thought that is because of all this other stuff. They were the aggressors. Oh, yeah. And then all these things keep happening where it's, like, even as I was watching, it was like, oh, the Skrull, they're like being a little bit passive in the way they're attacking people. And you go, it's because they're not attacking people.
Right. And yeah, it occurs to you at first that, the Skrull are described as these murderers. And the fact that they're just chilling on their home world, they're in disguise on their home world, literally just like not attacking, but trying to, just play, because they're in disguise, they're just trying to play off this invasion, and that's the thing. We find out that they're just a hit team at the end of the day. The Kree, the Star Force squad, which Star Force is also in the comics, and there's a lot of weird stuff with the Kree and Shi'ar war. We're not going to go into all that because that's like mega Marvel cosmic universe. But either way, I was really impressed with the portrayal of the Skrull, and a lot of people were talking about the social commentaries about this film or the social agendas. But one thing I really liked about it, regardless of all that, is there was this like slight portrayal of like, I know, the horrors of war, like the fact that like all these Skrulls were trying to do was reconnect with their families and like, find their loved ones. Like,
right. Well, and then you get to the end of it, and like Captain Marvel's like, "Oh, I've done terrible things. Like I'm so sorry." He's like, "My hands aren't clean either. Like this is a war and things happen." And so it has that. Oh yeah, war is ugly and gross,
and it really humanized, especially when Talos, like wants his wife to cover his child's eyes. Like he's so then it becomes all the more apparent that like nobody on the Skrull side is wanting to do anything they're doing. They're literally acting out of. They're acting out of self-defense. Yep. They're just trying to survive, which I know was very scary, but also awesome. But I guess back to the movie, man, I was surprised by, once again, the de-aging, but what was funny to me is how a lot of the clunkiness in the action actually was justified by the film, or clunkiness in the acting. Because, there's a part when Clark Gregg, Phil Coulson, he's kind of clunky when he comes out of the blockbuster. Yeah. And, part of me was like, okay, well, that's just bad acting because they have to, make him stiff so they can do de-aging or whatever.
And then you're like, oh, no, that wasn't him.
So that was really well played. But, yeah, I know. I think there was just a lot more going on in the film that I liked than I disliked. But
so we didn't talk about it too much, but just Samuel Jackson getting to basically take the lead or like the co-lead on it.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the de-aging sense, but just I loved getting to be in the literal front seat of the movie.
Because we haven't had like a Nick Fury movie.
Yeah, we haven't had that, and so he's been one of these guys that has been around.
Yes.
We've seen him in a ton of movies. He's been more kind of prominent in certain ones.
But he's always been like behind the scenes.
Yeah, always behind this. It's like he shows up and makes some big impact, and then he's behind the scenes while everyone else takes to action. And then he shows up at the end, or things like that. And he also always is he's like an exposition character. He's a mentoring character. So you don't get to spend time with him. You get to see Nick Fury, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., you don't get to spend time with just him as a person. And that's what this movie did. But and some of that's even the nature of the movie. It's before he is agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., before he is cynical guy that's seen way too many things and he's trying to save the world. You see what he's like.
Yeah, and that's also what I enjoyed, right, is the fact that, like you said, he's this cynical person, been there, done that, seen it all. But in this movie, you get to see, like, a sense of wonder evoked. You get to see him, like, incredulous, like, just, like, he just doesn't know what he's, like, dealing with and, like, trying to rationalize it in his head. That was awesome. And, and Samuel Jackson just gets to cut loose in this movie. Mm-hmm. He's not playing like a stoic, military official. He's just cutting loose and having a good time.
Yep. And that's what, like, he's probably my favorite thing about the movie, both because you get to see him younger and just because he's Samuel Jackson. So he just brings such a vibrant energy to it and personality. And then because, as I mentioned before, that X-Files vibe to it, like all of that stuff was like, this is this is cool. I'm even if other issues that I had, I'm glad that they made something where this exists.
Yeah, actually, that does remind me. I mean, just as a obviously spoiler. Man, I did not see it coming that this was going to be how he lost his eye. You know, like, I mean, super subtle, like, downplayed, but at the same time, Flurkins, man. God.
I hated that.
Yeah. Like, I have such mixed feelings about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my problem with it is that who's the coolest guy with an eye patch of the 21st century?
Yeah.
Nick Fury. Just so iconic. It's the biggest franchise in the world.
Yes.
And you got the cool guy with the cool eye patch. So it's the big mystery. How did he lose his eye? And then Winter Soldier even has the look into my eye deal. And then of all the directions you can go with the how did this happen, they went with like a cheap joke.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's not that it needed to be, and then he was saving the world from the scroll and the ship exploded.
And shrapnel or some bullcrap.
Yeah, it doesn't like. It's not that it needs to have a great story to it.
Right.
But if you don't have a great story, you don't replace a great story with a cheap laugh or something like that, where you're just like, now it becomes kind of groan-inducing. It's like, like you've now associated Nick Fury's eye with something that just one of the most cringy moments in the whole thing, because it's the prequel problem.
Yep.
Where you over answer things and you give the mystery of it is more exciting than the answer, and so that's that's one of the big problems with prequels. The Star Wars prequels, almost every single Star Wars prequel has had this problem of answering questions I wasn't asking with an answer that I didn't like, or sometimes answering a question that I did have with a really bad answer.
Yeah.
And that's what this felt like, except it was intentional. Well, like they wrote their whole point was like, let's make it funny.
Well, and that's what they also should have done is like, I thought that him getting scratched on the eye was literally just going to be kind of a cheap foreshadow. You know, like I think they should have left it at that. It's like he gets a small scratch on his eye or whatever from the cat. You know, his eye, he can still see out of his eye, and it's just like a foreshadow that's the eye he loses.
And so when he takes the patch off in Winter Soldier, there's claw. It looks like there's, and so they could have been like, actually, my eye's okay. That I just got some scars around my eye. Like there's some things you could have done where it's like, that like that's where some of it came from, but not all of it. And that like that's kind of fun. But when it's like literally the coolest eye patch of the 21st century.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It like the only other person that in popular culture right now that has an eye patch was that new Texas U.S. representative guy that was on Saturday Night Live a month ago. Yeah. He's just elected. He's got an eye patch, and he's an actual SEAL that I was blown up. He's a war hero. So there's like two guys in popular culture with an eye patch. One is a real life human that was blown up by a bomb and then ran for be a politician, and the other one was scratched in the eye.
Actually, there is like one other person. This is gonna sound weird. There's one other person
in pop culture
I can immediately think of. I don't know if it's been done in the show, but if Preacher's still coming out.
Okay.
So the main character, Jesse Custer. So for those of you who don't know, just like tangent, Preacher is a show about a Texas preacher who gets the power of the voice of God. So anything he says, you got to do, yada yada. But either way, he meets God, and God plucks his eye out. In the comics, haven't watched the show.
Wow, that's some Old Testament stuff right there.
But
once again, God plucks out your eye, pretty cool.
Yep.
Thanos plucks out your eye, pretty cool. Cat scratches your eye, and then you're like, oh. This cat, and then he keeps the cat.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's
just a cheap joke.
Part of it is also like, I mean, with this cat, I mean, one, there's like two problems I have is, okay, now I love nifflers, right? I love nifflers from, and you probably know the trope name, right? But I love nifflers from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, cute creatures. But then I feel like there's going to be this stupid pop culture fatty trend where, like, you know, with nifflers or whatever else, where something very small and relatively insignificant, like, just blows up out of nowhere. Then they kind of force it into sequels and all that when it's just not meant to be there. Yeah. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with Flurkins. You know, like, this cat was a cool element, like this alien cat is somehow on Earth. And now it's just going to become like a cheap joke they like push into like a bunch of other movies or whatever. Yeah. Gosh, so I guess, wow, we kind of go on over a lot. Fine, let's finally turn into like what we actually, whoa.
Were you about to go into didn't like?
I was going to go into didn't likes, but did you have anything you want
to That's
what
I was about to, I don't know why I cut you off as you were about to say didn't like. It's like, are you going to say didn't like?
Yeah.
Yes, I was. You know, it just... The first one that comes to mind, a lot of the acting just felt off. And we've talked about some of it makes sense because it's Kree or Skrull, and
Yeah,
so
militaristic and
that explains some of it. And then there's some elements where you have a very militaristic people, and then some of it you could be like Annette Bening is this main computer thing, and so then she's not a person. But when you have, we've just made 3 excuses for awkward acting.
Yeah.
And so then you have a movie where it's like set up, in which case the only person that acts normal is Samuel L. Jackson. Everyone else is acting weird the whole movie, and it's very odd performances. And so there's just a lot of just oddness in the way, even the dialogue was the first 30 minutes where it was just dropping a lot of exposition and like, and then the Kree, we exist to be warrior heroes. The Skrull are shapeshifters that are terrorists. These and just very clunky, giving us all the information we need to understand the story, even though some of it we already learned in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
And combine that with weird performance. Annette Bening in particular was just like, I don't understand what they were going for.
Yeah.
Of all the directions to go with this, I wouldn't have gone with this one. And then, of course, Brie Larson being the big one that people have been discussing.
Yeah.
Is that before the movie came out, the trailers showed her as a little bit stiff.
Yeah.
And then the internet has been wanting to pounce on this movie for various reasons. She made some statements that incited a lot of people. So then you take her, they don't present her in the best light. In the trailers, combined that, and they're doing her, a hero. And you put that all together, that's just like, that's poking the hornet nest that is the angry internet and these guys that have nothing better to do than fight for really stupid causes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. In which case,
every woman's a queen and all. I'm sorry.
Like, and it's one of these ones where it's like, so she did some unwise things, and then it provoked them, and so then they're acting silly. Then you watch the movie.
Yeah.
And it's a weird performance. I think it's some of it's like some of it's.
I personally thought she did a great job, but if I really reflect on it, like I said, I need to see it I got to see it like a second, third, maybe fourth time to really process. But I feel like I was like maybe 75-25 on her acting. Like I really 75% of me liked it, especially the flashback moments. I thought she did great, and really being in the moment of those. But there was a lot of inconsistency when she was Captain Marvel. When she got to that point and was that character.
Right. Yeah. It was a bunch of different things. Like part of it is like they're doing a little bit of the Bourne identity. She's got memory loss, but you never really, like Jason Bourne is struggling through like, I can't remember anything. I'm powerful, but I don't know where this is coming from.
And he's already got the skill set, but this is like she lost her memory, then she got the skill set. So it kind of changes the tone of it.
But the way she's responding doesn't, you don't get this vibe of this person that's trying to figure out now I never felt like I knew her. I never felt like I was getting to know her, what was going on behind the scenes, what was motivating her, anything like that. And then we get like the flashbacks towards the end of it where it's like, she doesn't give up. She keeps on going. And it's like, well, that would have been useful information earlier on to establish who she is, so I understand, and so we can understand her actions. And that
was very, that was very much clear, from the marketing. But they should have made that kind of, I guess, pervade, more peppered throughout the movie itself.
Yeah, it's like they do these little glimpses, and then they try and use the flashbacks for leading into her getting her full powers. But it felt very weird to me the way they did it. Right. And so then I just always felt like she was like an arm's length away from me because the way she was portrayed, and she has the strength and the confidence, but at times it's like even her power set, very unclear how powerful she is. So some people are like, oh, she's like a Mary Sue and she's way too powerful. Like, that was your takeaway? Because she was in a room full of people fighting them and she was winning, but she wasn't really just knocking guys, she wasn't blowing them away.
Yeah, there were points where they were and let's attribute that to the fact that up until that moment she hadn't had the full capacity of her powers, and she'd also kind of been programmed, let's say, to not rely on her powers. So I think there's a little bit of justice there, margin of error there, a little bit of acceptability there as to she's not as trained or capable as she could be because she just learned how to cut loose pretty much.
And there's a side to it where I can go, okay, that's an explanation that's logical and makes sense.
Yeah,
but when you get to your third act and it's like, this is where we really get to see what she can do, and I'm going, I still don't know. I still don't know how powerful she is. Because you could say Man of Steel.
Yeah.
He's been, don't use your powers, hold back, and then finds the ship. his daddy's like, hey, test yourself, see how far you can go.
And fly.
And he, like, very quickly is very powerful. Or in her case, it's like they have this scene and instead of like making it, they just did this big moving montage of her getting back up. And now she's going to fight everybody. And then No Doubt starts playing. Yeah. And it's like, now let's play it for corny fun. It's like, what? This could have been like the power scene of like she's really becoming who she is and discovering how powerful it is. And instead it's like, I'm just a girl. Like, why would you choose this particular direction?
Also, I'm gonna be honest. Like, this is a small gripe, but if you're gonna go with like, you know, using an actual, you know, proprietary song for a scene, go the Thor Ragnarok route and pick some good old, like, just classic rock that's really getting you amped up. Because I mean, Immigrant Song goes with anything. But
so they were playing so hard into the '90s, and so they were like, we have to use a '90s song. Is what they, you know, that's what they're
Metallica or something. I don't know. But,
you know, I'm just a girl. You have to have a girl like that.
There's probably a Metallica cover of that out there.
Tie all these together. You got to have it's got to be '90s. It's got to be a girl singer. It has to be about being a girl that's empowered. So
okay, and
then it plays out, and you're like, why this moment? Like, you could have done right if you want to do that. If you want to have I'm just a girl and she's punching guys in the face, have a bar fight. Do the classic movie cliche. Do a bar fight. That's what they should have.
That's what they should have done. Okay, is, you know, when it flashes, like, they're showing her getting back up and all that. But here's the problem: they're only showing her getting back up. They're not showing what comes next. Like, when she falls off the rope, is she getting back on the, you know, like, is she getting back on the rope? When old boy says, like, it's called a cockpit for a reason and all that, you know, is she like taking a pull cue and like taking him out? Like, you know, there's no like. That was my problem that like kind of didn't click. Right. Is the fact that like, I was cool with it showing her getting up, like, that's inspirational. But you know what?
They're all too short for me. That's what pick. Don't show me 5 things of her standing up. Show me one thing of like how it, like who she really was that really like embodies what this looked like, or show one earlier in the movie and one later in the movie. To use once again our Man of Steel comparison, they've got all these little flashbacks that each one of them. You saw it and you learned something new about who he was and how he was raised.
Yes.
You left each one of these like he was like very tormented because he had these powers, he didn't know what to do with it. He was found himself in situations where he had to use his powers and he didn't know if he should. And his parents were like, we don't know either. And like that all of that captures who this character is and like where they're coming from. Whereas in this one it was like, see, there's boys out there that say mean things to girls and are sexist. Like, okay, but what did I learn about her from this?
Like, okay, we know that.
Yeah, like
I didn't learn in the 90s, like, you know, 80s and 90s.
Right, like I didn't learn anything because the cockpit boy said that to her. Like I knew that douchebags were out there.
Yep.
But what did she do with it? So let's have the scene play out, or she falls down and people are laughing. You can't do it, and she just keeps falling. And maybe she never gets back up. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing is that maybe she's that like. She keeps showing her failing, and like we did that with Steve Rogers. That we see him in an alley. Very quickly, you realize, you know, he keeps trying to apply for the military, and they're like, "No, you're going to die. You're not going to die."
That's also the thing with Steve Rogers is there's a reason why one of his most famous lines throughout every movie is "I can do this all day." Is we know that not only he's not going to get back, he's not just going to get back up. He's going to be ready to fight even if it kills him, like because he's going to stand on principle. You know?
And I never felt like that. I got that with Captain Marvel.
Yes.
And that's what. Arm's length away the whole time. And I don't know how much of that is the writing. I don't know how much of that is the performance. Because it's not like she was awful. It's just I never felt the connection the way that there were little things that even Chris Evans' face CGI'd onto
like
whoever, onto like whatever that person is that they put his face on. You immediately get the character, what drives him, and who he is.
Yeah, they show him jump on a live grenade. You know?
They establish it so well, and then, or you can pick Iron Man, you can pick any of the characters, and you understand who they are and what drives them, and that's the thing that I think. Like I thought, some story stuff was kind of clunky.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of different things that like I could forgive it, and I forget like. Guardians of the Galaxy, I love it.
Yeah.
But it's a movie that it's a kind of a story's not the strongest story in the MCU.
Yeah.
But immediately you get these characters and why they're coming together, and you just love these characters. And the way they decided to approach Captain Marvel, introducing us to her, revealing who she is and everything, it feels at arm's length away.
And that's my other thing is people will always complain about man, people always complain about, like, origin stories. Like, we've got too many superhero origins, but Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Captain America, Hulk, anything, like any of those origin stories, what works is you get enough of a picture of the character that then it sets them up for development. Like, even Iron Man, you still see elements of his arrogance. Like, same thing with Doctor Strange. Like, I was talking to a friend about Doctor Strange and Iron Man interaction in Infinity War, and they're like, oh, I just really wish they'd been buddies like in the comics. It's like, no, because they're still both developing as heroes despite their tenure. So that part of, despite being a hero, that part of their character is still very much in there. Right. Like, so elements like that, but like you don't get enough of that with Brie Larson and Captain Marvel.
Or to do the Wonder Woman comparison, to say that like right out of the gate, they portray Wonder Woman as curious, naive, and charming. And so she's very likable right out of the gate, and you know exactly what she stands for, what she's trying to accomplish, and the inherent nature of a character that doesn't have their memory, that's on the wrong side. There's things that make it a little bit more intriguing to it, and it's more tied into the story. Actually, but by the end of it, you still don't get her.
Actually, the Wonder Woman comparison is also a really good one to make because despite being a DC EU film, right? Like all that aside, like the fact is she's still a militant woman, like raised completely in a militant society, and that's what she was. She was still very curious about the outside world, wanted to soak it in, but was also whenever like duty called, she just got up and went in the fray. So there is like like you can have that.
It entirely feels strong, powerful, empowered, of course, all of that, and still very feminine. Just feels like a person that you would know while being this goddess.
Actually, I am going to bring that up, and oh gosh, I'm probably going to lose all 1% of my female subscribers for this one. But like, I don't like it when they write a hero, a female hero just to be a female hero. That's what Wonder Woman did great on, is the fact that like, she was yes, she's obviously, an Amazonian, she's a female, but she's a hero. She's a hero, she's a warrior. But this Marvel movie seemed to like push way too much of she's a girl hero. Yeah. Not she's a woman who's a hero, but that she's a woman hero.
Yeah. It certainly toyed that line for me.
It's just
there's even kind of like do the montage of like what's her memories of being a pilot. It's you can't do this, you're a girl. Yeah. It's a cockpit for a reason. It was a little bit heavy-handed. Like she's like climbing let's rewind back to any place you would be.
Yeah.
If you see a person climbing 30 feet up on a rope and they're like, I'm gonna jump over and grab that rope, is the group of people gonna be like, she's a girl, let's make fun of her? Like, oh, that's awesome that you're doing that.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I'll give it that because, if it's a bunch of dudes, maybe testosterone. But at the same time, fun fact, bunch of dudes around doing that, I know, like, half those dudes can't do that. Like, I don't think I can do that. Like,
and that's the thing. Like some of those, a scene starts to ring a little bit hollow. Is like, if I'm in this situation, like, people are, like, teasing stuff. As soon as they're 30 feet in the air and they're like, I'm going to jump for it. And, like, you're impressed by their courage. Like, I was not in boot camp in 1989, but I remember 1989, and I remember the night. There wasn't that much of a gap between where I was in groups, and so some of it just feels a little bit like playing that card a little bit too heavy.
Yeah,
and then it's kind of a nice joke. The final little bit with Jude Law, where he's like, "Just take me on one, and let's duke it out," and then she's like, I don't need to prove anything to you.
Yeah, if that was like the one, kind of moment like of what we've just been talking about that was like played out, then that was perfect. Like, I love that because it was also like what am I trying to prove? Like, what am I trying to accomplish? Oh, I'm trying to arrest you. That's right. So.
Right. So it kind of toyed the line. There's a little bit more than I would have liked, but I didn't really care. That's not a thing that I would list down as like. And then the movie had way too much of an agenda. I was trying to. I just don't like to play that.
I feel like people also, and that's what I'm saying is like I'm not trying to play too much into that. I just think that like if it is towing that line once again, there were some things I could have done to easily avoid that. Yeah. But at the same time, I still thought it was, like I said, I still enjoyed the movie, but I'm not trying to dissect or read into it as much as 80% of the internet is going to.
They're not even reading into, or they're reading into it. They have an agenda. They have a narrative, a story, whether that's like, it's the best because she's a girl, or it's the worst because Brie Larson is the worst. Either one, the internet is reading it into it. They are infusing it where the movie itself hasn't done that.
Yep.
As another positive on this one, speaking of origins stories, it doesn't follow the Marvel template.
No.
The Marvel, like Doctor Strange, I really like the movie, but it feels like they just took the template. Ant-Man, I really like the movie. It feels like Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
And so this one doesn't do that at all. It's its own story. It's its own, that's why there's twists and turns. It's very different from any other story structure in the MCU.
That's actually kind of funny too, right? Because then because you've got two captains in the MCU, right? Captain Marvel and then Captain Marvel and then Captain America, right? And technically those two are kind of close because they both deviate from the heroic origin story of each hero, because they've already got the traits that define them as a hero, and then they just get the powers, and that no other origin story has that. I mean, except technically the Hulk, but still, so those two I would say oddly enough deviate. So I got to agree with you there. I didn't even consider that.
So that's where we talked a little bit of a bunch of the negatives. It's clunky. Yeah. There's things the lead character felt at a distance. I'm really hoping Endgame fixes that.
Yeah.
Because it could just be, this movie had 5 people work on the story, 3 screenwriters, 2 directors, and then 1 Kevin Feige shining the whole thing. Yep. And when you do that, sometimes it's really easy for it to feel like a product of too many minds, in which case when you're having a lead character jumping around from all these different visions, you don't narrow in on what matters most. So I'm hoping that that's kind of what maybe the Russos, they can say, all right, I mean, she's only one of 25 heroes in this movie. Yeah. So then we can't have her explore everything. We're not trying to figure out her identity. She is about this. And so everything is about making it very clear who she is. And we get to see her powers. We get to figure out all that fun stuff. That's what I'm hoping for. And so then I'm totally won over. That all of my criticisms are fixed by the Russos. And the way I watch movies, if the Russos can fix the character by just focusing is that key thing. Yep. This movie's better for me.
Yeah. But I have to admit, I'm also a little worried about Endgame because I'm kind of scared about what we saw in Infinity War, which is that up until Infinity War, we saw Thanos portrayed as this, kind of, I want to say maniacal tyrant almost. Like he was very much a more nefarious character, or it was implied he was much more nefarious. So I think I'm a little worried about any character changes that could come to key players of Endgame. Like, so if Endgame is where they decide to change Captain Marvel, well, actually, no, you know what? I'm going to shut up because that could very well happen because there's been like a substantial amount of time between Endgame and Captain Marvel. Well, wait. You know what I mean?
True,
you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, switch the witch. But, yeah. Wait, switch the witch. That sounds bad. Either way, so Captain Marvel to Endgame. So, yeah, I know. I'm excited, but I don't know, you got anything else to... I know we wanted to talk about nitpickers. Otherwise, I guess we could go into the implication for... Oh, that's what we're kind of talking about right now. Implications for Endgame. How do you think this is going to feed into it, though?
So our post-credit scene, my guess was it was the beeper was going to tie into it. And so whether that was her like, hey, look, my buddy Nix wants to talk or whatever. But it plays out a version of that, which is to say that we see it from our hero's perspective still, and they're like, wonder what this thing is. Like, keep sending the message, and then ta-da, she's there. As soon as the scene started, I was like, I bet this is going to end with her there. That's the big twist reveal at the end of it.
But I also do like that because it's been this like build up for months of like every Marvel fan has needed like some hope because Endgame was I mean, Infinity War was one of the most brutal movies I've seen. That sounds bad because obviously there's a lot more, but I mean 19 films building into that. And that's how it ends. Mm-hmm.
Well, and then it's some fun things to tie back into the 2 Endgame trailers we've got thus far. A lot of speculation that someone was removed from the Super Bowl trailer.
Yeah.
When they walk outside and they look up at the sky, goes like, that looks like there should be a person there with the way that you would stage a shot. And then the silhouette shot at the end. It's like, they're like all the same distance, except right there should be a person right there.
Yeah.
Who are they cutting out of this? Now we very likely know that Captain Marvel was cut out of those trailers.
Right.
Which also explains why, like, I was thinking, it's weird that they're not putting a trailer out right now, like, or a week ago.
Right.
Do you put it out right before so that, this movie's looking to make 160 million domestic.
Dang.
I mean, it's going to be a massive, it's on the higher end of box office debut openings.
Dang.
For the MCU. It's very high end for the MCU.
Oh, I
especially
didn't know that.
For first films in a franchise. It's like... First films, you have Avengers, Black Panther, and then I think this one is the third one of firsts in many franchises inside the franchise. So it's going to make a ton of money. So I was like, of course you would want to put a great Endgame trailer. Endgame trailer didn't even run on mine.
Yeah,
I had Spider-Man. I did not get any Endgame. But now makes a little bit more sense to say that, okay, they didn't want to spoil what happens in the movie. And if she's showing up in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
She's in every scene. She's like throughout this, she's saturates the whole movie. And if you don't want to show to it reveal, okay, and this is how Tony gets back and this person's saved here. If you don't want to show a bunch of that stuff and you don't want to reveal in the trailer that she's there, like shows up at the get-go.
Yeah.
Then what do you even put in a trailer? And that's, you look at the trailers we got, nothing.
Yeah. And actually that does make me think about the fact that, you know, we always make jokes. I always make jokes about who's the strongest Avenger between me and Sean. We're not going to go into that. We're not going to go into that now. We're not going to go into
The answer is depends on which exercise we're doing.
Preach. But I say that because
his legs.
But that's gonna be hard to show on screen. Either way, I hate to, I got that out of Thor Ragnarok because I love the little frenemy, rivalry between Thor and Hulk. But I gotta say, how do you feel her power level now stacks up against Thor and the Hulk? Because right now,
to my point, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I literally have no idea because they've told me in interviews, oh, she's the most powerful. Like that's the rumors are speculating from the movie. There's no reason you would know that at all.
But here's the thing: is like, I mean, based on the changes we saw in Infinity War, it's clear that a lot of these heroes might be able to like tier up in terms of power. I mean, Tony Stark upgrading his armor, Stormbreaker Thor. Heck, we might even
Stormbreaker Hulk. That sounds like a character, right?
But I mean, like, there's just this whole other tier of like, power that like each hero could hit. I don't know.
In our new captain, she can absorb energy.
Well, and that's part of the problem, right? You're talking about them not displaying that, but it was maybe
it's sort of in the movie though.
But and that's what.
But
I
only know that because I think you said that right. In the comics, she can absorb power of sorts.
Yeah, well, that's what she can do. So in the comics, y'all, one of Captain Marvel's like best abilities is that she can absorb and magnify her power, like absorb energy and magnify her power. So if they do play off that, maybe she learns how to control that better between her movie and Endgame. Then she's easily the most powerful Avenger. Like, I mean, just hands down.
Because when she escapes, it like she absorbs the energy of the ship. That's how people escape.
Oh my god! So because that's why it shuts down.
So it's in there, but it's not explained.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think of that in the moment. I was like, oh, so she's shorting out the system or something. And then afterwards, I was thinking through. It was like Andy said she can absorb power, and that makes more sense. And then when she's back on Earth and walks by power lines, it like shows her doing something. But the movie doesn't explain what's happening.
Exactly.
And it's this very important thing to the point of like we're trying to beat this guy Thanos who's got a cool power glove. She absorbs power.
Yep.
So that one, like it's those types of details that you kind of really when you got a franchise like this, they're all watchable, they're all fun. You got Samuel Jackson, doing his thing. The things that differentiate them are the ones that you watch it and it all clicks, it all makes sense. It's not just fun, but it like you really get it. It is compelling. And you're connected to everybody. For me, this one, it's like, it's fun, it's watchable, love Samuel Jackson. But at the end of it, I was like, how powerful is she? What drove her? Like, why? Yeah. Why did they do the flashbacks like that? And I left it with all these questions. And you're writing the better version of the movie, like, while you're watching it. Like, why didn't they do this? I don't understand. Why wouldn't you answer this question? For all the expository dialogue in the movie, for all the scenes where it's like, and the Kree are noble, all the times it does that, why do we not know what her powers are?
So they definitely need to go, because in the comics is also this device called the Psycho Magnetron or something like that. Either way, in the comics,
sounds like something I would resonate with.
Yeah. No. Either way, in the comics, right? She gets blown up. The original Captain Marvel, or like Marvel and Jan Roger fighting. She's there. She gets blown up. That's how she gets her. That also, honestly, I thought that was a good twist. Like, I like when Marvel like injects legacy heroes in there, and like they're not actually heroes, because it would be too forced at that point. So when you have characters like Annette Bening as a Marvel just laying low on Earth, I really like stuff like that because it plays into them standing up the universe on their own. Setting it aside from the comics.
So the daughter in the movie.
Yes.
So is that it? I got all because of things you were saying. Like they were little hinting at her,
like her having the jacket and like her colors given. So and that, remember, that was one of the issues we had before. We actually had to re-record this line for our first breakdown of who the character Captain Marvel was. But
so we did a video on my channel back whenever the first trailer dropped.
Yeah, before I even like started recording.
And we're talking about Captain Marvel, and there's been 50 years of Captain Marvels in Marvel, and then throw DC into the mix. It goes back 70 years. But so there have been different versions, and the co-pilot friend in the movie, her daughter
So
has been a Captain Marvel.
I thought the mom was Captain Marvel at one point. It turns out the daughter. I thought she was Monica Rambeau, but it turns out her daughter Monica is Monica Rambeau, who does become Captain Marvel at one point. I think she also becomes Photon. There was a lot. I need to research the history again. But either way, she does
changing titles.
Yeah. But it's they talk about this in the comic where she takes on the Captain Marvel mantle for a while. She's also powerful. I don't think her powers are 1-in-1 with Carol Danvers, but she can still expel crazy amounts of energy. And it's also funny because she's part of this comic called Next Wave Agents of Hate. And I say that because it's written by Warren Ellis, who wrote the Castlevania series. I'm going off. Either way, she's very powerful, and she's the one who technically hands over the Captain Marvel title to to Carol Danvers, while she's still Miss Marvel and making that transition. So, it's kind of the pass off the baton.
Yeah.
So there is a potential, and that's been one of my theories I kind of discussed with you for Phase 4 or whatever, is that a lot of legacy heroes are going to come into play. So if Brie Larson hands off they can have Captain Marvel keep going if Monica Rambeau takes up the mantle. But I don't know. Could just be a reference.
Yeah, probably just a reference, but a nice little one.
Yeah, a little Easter egg.
Now that I know things because you know things.
Little treat to tantalize the tongue. Mm-hmm. Is that a thing? I don't know.
It sounded a little bit creepy.
Yeah, it's very
But
creepy.
Speaking of tantalizing the tongue, you've got a little warning that someone's got a barbecue party right up there. That's probably why you used that analogy.
Yeah. Man, I'm hungry. Either way, did you have any closing thoughts? I mean, there's a lot going on with, I guess now there's also, that is one thing I thought was cool too, is the fact that, not only is the Tesseract on Earth because of the goose, the Flurkin burps it up, but there's a Flurkin on this planet, which implies, and no one knows how it got there, it's an incredibly dangerous animal. So there's this kind of implication that there were just random aliens on Earth. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's going to play into anything.
The X-Files. There's just a lot of little things that were a little bit nicely teased by where this movie kind of goes.
Yeah.
Where, whether you're talking about a movie set in the year 2000 with Ronan once again return. I was hoping Ronan was going to be, they were going to make Ronan a better character.
Yeah, like they were going to flesh him out a little bit.
Yeah, flesh him out because it's like he's in it. His name is on the poster. And so I thought it was going to be, okay, well, this will make Ronan in Guardians better. Yep. And then it wasn't. It was just the same as one-dimensional. But maybe he'll be more of a main villain in the next one. But the other thing, so one of the theories people have been saying is that the Skrull are on Earth in Endgame. Yeah. And like maybe Ant-Man was a Skrull and maybe the Skrull are going to invade. There's a bunch of like rumors and speculation, things like that. And all of that changes now because of this. Suddenly it's like, okay, maybe the Skrulls show up as a second army.
Actually, I was going to say, one of the Endgame theories that I've loved floating around is the fact that there might be a second villain, a second antagonist in Endgame, but also that Captain Marvel and Thor are on a team to go into space and find backup. So if the Skrull are who they're seeking out, then because we know that they have a warp engine or a light speed engine, so there's a lot of potential for where this movie goes now.
Going back once again to why it's very difficult to make a trailer for the movie before Captain Marvel comes out.
Yeah, I mean, but this just opens up a whole realm of possibility for what not only Endgame's going to entail, but what the next trailer drop, if they do drop a trailer.
Well, I wasn't excited for Endgame, but now I am.
What? Shut up. But yeah, I know those are just my thoughts and speculations on it. Closing thoughts. Movie's good. Not my favorite, but it's definitely not the worst one in the MCU.
Like right about. Yeah. We'll go like that.
I'll definitely put it above. You know what? I'm going to save that thought. That's going to be in my upcoming Avengers movie ranking. And I think you just posted yours for the Captain Marvel one.
I did. I posted it this morning. I basically worked almost 24 hours straight on it.
Gosh, that's so much.
Like, I was up until 3 in the morning, and I was like, all right, I'm going to just start making mistakes at this point in time. I have to stop. So I'll just wake up, and it's 6, and I'll take 2-3 hour nap.
Yeah.
And then I'll finish it, and then I still, posted it late. I mean, it was only getting 2.5 hours of sleep, still posted it late because I was putting so much time into this one. I'd never done that before. That's I'm full-time now, if you don't know this, on YouTube. And you can't really, when you have a day job that you have to go back to on Monday, you can't do that because it'll jack you up, especially when you're extreme in age like myself. Very unwise to do that if you can't fix it. Now it's like it doesn't matter. I took the last month off from sugar and then in processed carbs, and so then it was like, all right, I'm gonna be working 24 hours straight on this video. All right, I'm gonna get some chips. I'm gonna drink soda. I'm gonna get energy drinks, And so my system's probably going to be all jacked up tomorrow. But
yeah, no.
So it's like I could do that now. Like I could work through the night and I was like, okay, it doesn't matter to me. I don't have to go back to work on Monday. So if I sleep all day today, it's not like I lost my weekend.
And see, the problem with that is like I still kind of do that. Like I was up till 2 trying to render my review and all that, and I slept till about noon today. And yeah, you know, I got to do this on Monday. I got to go back to work on Monday. Either way, yeah, that's unwise decisions from some you know, older men. You can tell we're wise because of our facial hair. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's all I really have for today, man. Any closing thoughts you want to wrap up with?
No, I mean, if you're an MCU fan, of course you have to go see it. If you're someone that's kind of more on the fence, this probably is like a red box entry. Unless you're really excited for Endgame, then you have to see it. Just get ready for Endgame. There's enough nuggets in here setting up the cosmic stuff as well as this character that's almost certainly going to be very prominent. Which you got to go see it for that reason. It's one of those movies that kind of cheated its way into must-see status, which is that's the brilliance of Kevin Feige to like position these things that way. But yeah, I'm excited. Like my kids are out of town this weekend at their grandparents. Otherwise, I probably would have taken Chloe to go see it or something like that. I'm like, Liam, you're a boy. You stay home.
But yeah, I mean, at the same time, you know, at least we got a power player in the. At least we have a power player in the on the Avengers now. I mean, a bigger power player, and I guess that brings up to what 3 female Avengers now. I mean, you know, with Black Widow being good at doing Black Widow stuff, and then with Scarlet Witch, you know, being good at her magic stuff. So yeah, now you got a bunch of really powerful Avengers.
And if our the Wasp ever decides that she wants to be friendly, she can be an Avenger too. But her and her dad are just they're on a negative on all that stuff.
Also, they're oh gosh, what's the term for it? Oh yeah, they got snapped.
Yeah, they got snapped.
Gosh. But yeah, that's all we got for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of King's Comic and the incredible crossover with
Sean Chandler. Sean Chandler Talks About.
So please go check him out. Please go check me out if you're watching this video.
I always do.
Sean, thank you, Sean. So if y'all like today's video, please hit that like button. If you really like that video, please hit the subscribe or notify button. And if you like what Sean's been talking about, and for whatever reason you're not already subscribed to him, please check out his channel, Sean Chandler Talks About. That being said, y'all, thank you for watching another episode of King's Comics, and we'll be seeing y'all again real soon.